Ever feel like, you're just a tiny little boat and out in the vast ocean?
Oh, yeah.
And, those waves, they're being controlled by just a handful of, massive ships.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it feels like when we start thinking about billionaires and, how much influence they have in politics.
Right.
So that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah.
We're going deep on this.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Especially how it all ties into, potential second Trump administration.
Oh, absolutely.
And
oh, wow.
they're influencing who gets to run, what policies get prioritized, and ultimately how entire administrations might operate.
Okay, so let's get into some concrete examples then. Who are some of the major players we might see trying to influence a Trump 2.0?
Well, you really can't ignore Elon Musk these days. He's become increasingly aligned with Trump, especially on issues like deregulation and, his control over platforms like X. Well, that gives him an incredible power to shape narratives.
Yeah.
And really kind of amplify certain viewpoints.
Yeah, Musk is definitely a fascinating case. He's almost become the poster child for this whole, billionaire in politics thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not just him, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You've got other billionaires like Warren Stevens, Linda McMahon, Jared Isaacman, Howard Lutnick. All these names are being thrown around as potential players in a Trump administration. And let's not forget about those figures who are close to billionaire status,
Yeah.
Guys like Vivek Ramaswamy, Stephen Wyckoff, Doug Burgum. They're all in the mix too. So we've got tech titans, financiers, media moguls. This is a pretty diverse group. Mm. But how much impact can they actually have on policy? I mean, is there evidence that this kind of financial influence actually translates into, tangible changes?
One of the most compelling examples, I think, is the 2017 tax cuts. While these cuts were presented as beneficial to the middle class, the data shows that the top 1%, and particularly billionaires, they were the ones who reaped the most rewards. We're talking about specific mechanisms here, loopholes, deductions, all designed to disproportionately favor the wealthy.
So it's almost like a hidden system where policies that look like they benefit everyone actually end up mostly serving the interests of people who are already rich. What do you think about that? That's something that concerns you?
It's a crucial question to consider for sure. And it does raise concerns about, who truly holds the reins of power in our system. Is it the average citizen or is it the billionaire class that's bankrolling these campaigns?
And it's not just about billionaires here in the U.S., right?
Right.
There's also the question of foreign influence, especially with Trump's relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
Right.
Trump's close ties to Saudi Arabia, all those billions of dollars in arms deals and business ventures, it really raises questions about the role of foreign wealth in shaping U.S. policy. And his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he plays a key role here. His business interests are deeply intertwined with Saudi investments.
So we're not just talking about individual billionaires then, we're talking about potentially entire nations wielding their financial clout to try to influence American politics. This definitely adds another layer of complexity to all of this.
Yeah, it does. And remember, this isn't just a Trump-specific issue. This is a systemic challenge within our political system itself. You have a relatively small group of incredibly wealthy individuals, and they can exert an outsized influence on the lives of millions of people. It's something that Bernie Sanders has been talking about for a long time. He argues that this concentration of wealth and influence in the hands of just a few, well, it undermines the core principles of democracy.
It really makes you wonder, who is actually benefiting from our system. But let's kind of zoom back in on Elon Musk for a second. He's become such a prominent figure in this whole billionaire in politics thing. What do you think about his evolution from this tech innovator to, a political force?
Well, his immense wealth, combined with his control over platforms like X, it gives him a megaphone unlike any other. He can amplify certain voices, silence others, and really push specific agendas, all while having a direct line to millions of billions of followers.
And he's not afraid to use that platform.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to politics. His alignment with Trump on things like deregulation and, his criticisms of what he sees as government overreach, it's been making headlines.
Yeah, it's definitely a significant departure from the traditional role of a business leader. He's actively stepping into the political arena. He's using his platform to advocate for policies that align with his business interests and his worldview.
And don't forget about his ambitions with SpaceX and space exploration. That's another area where government contracts and regulations play a huge role. It also feels like it blurs the lines between his personal business goals and his political influence.
Right. You have to wonder, are his political stances driven by a genuine desire to serve the public good? Or are they mostly about advancing his own business interests? Of course, it's probably a complex mix of both, but it's a dynamic that we're seeing more and more. Billionaires across all kinds of industries are using their wealth to shape policies that impact everything. Healthcare, education, environmental regulations, you name it.
Yeah, it's like this ripple effect. Their interests and priorities end up shaping the landscape for everyone else. Do you think there's a risk that the average person's needs and concerns just get lost in this power play? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a real concern. When policies are mostly crafted to benefit the ultra-wealthy, it creates a system that's inherently unequal. And that can really undermine the foundations of a functioning democracy.
That's a sobering thought. So where do we go from here? How do we even begin to address this growing concentration of wealth and political influence?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Really?
And there are no easy answers. Some people advocate for stricter campaign finance laws, to limit the influence of big money in politics. Others believe that we need greater transparency and accountability so we can expose the connections between donors and policy decisions.
It seems like it's a multifaceted problem. It's going to require a multi-pronged approach.
Absolutely. It's going to take a combination of things: legislative action, public awareness, maybe even a fundamental shift in how we understand the role of wealth and power in a democratic society.
So it's not just about pointing fingers. It's about finding ways to rebalance the scales. But before we go any further, I'm really curious to hear from you. How do you feel about this whole thing? About the growing influence of billionaires in politics? Does it concern you? Let us know your thoughts.
It's a tough one for sure, but you're right. Just recognizing the problem and having these conversations, that's got to be the first step.
Exactly. We need to keep talking about these issues. We need more transparency from our elected officials, and we need to hold them accountable. They need to represent the interests of all citizens, not just the wealthy few.
Well said, and that brings us back to what we're focused on today: a potential second Trump administration, and what that could mean for this whole billionaire in politics dynamic.
Yeah, it's definitely something we should all be paying attention to. We need to look at who Trump surrounds himself with, the policies he prioritizes, and any potential conflicts of interest that might come up. I mean, his history shows a pretty close alignment with the billionaire class, so it's a legitimate concern. Whose interests would really be served in a second term? Yeah, it's a real reminder that we as citizens have a responsibility here. We need to stay informed, engage in the political process, and make our voices heard. Our democracy depends on us actually participating, not just those with tons of money, all of us.
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and watch. The decisions made by politicians affect our lives, and we need to make sure those decisions represent everybody, not just the privileged few.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. A little unsettling at times too, honestly. But we really dug into this complex relationship between wealth and power. And you know what? I'm leaving with a sense of urgency. We need to keep digging, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a system that works for everyone.
I agree completely. I think the future of our democracy depends on it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So if you found this conversation thought-provoking, hit that like button and share it with your friends. Spreading awareness and having these conversations is so important. And if you're interested in more deep dives into the things that are shaping our world, hit that subscribe button to stay connected. Thanks for joining us.